Hi everyone, my name is Emma. I'm going to be talking about November 1997 today. I, of course, don't remember it because that's the month I was born, but I'm sure it was a crazy time for my family, and um, I'm sure when they look back on that time, they remember a lot and probably not a lot dealing with a newborn baby. But upon research, I didn't really find any huge events that happened, but I am really going to focus on the costs of living and prices of everything back then, movies and TV and music. Movies, TV, and music are really a big part of my life and something that when I look back on my childhood, I really remember. So I found some cool stuff that I'm really excited to share with you guys today. First of all, I'm going to go over some interesting costs of living and numbers. So what I found interesting was the gallon of gas price. So when I was born, it was floating above $1. So that's crazy to me because gas prices now are up to $3 or even more. With that a couple years ago being almost $4, it's insane to think that gas was that cheap. I guess it might not have felt that cheap back then because gas prices have only gone up, but it's crazy to think about stuff like that. And then a cost of a new car. I know a lot of people have talked about this in their speeches, but a cost of a new car costs around $17,000 back then, and now it costs almost $34,000. So that's crazy to think that it almost doubled in price from back then to now. With that, the average income didn't really increase that much, which is really interesting to me because you'd think if those prices have doubled, you'd think that the average income would have also done the same, but the average income used to be around 37 grand, and now it's only about 50. So it's interesting to see how that trend's going to go in the future or what's going to happen. Yeah, but that's all I found interesting about prices of things in the economy. So, on to movies and TV shows. This is my favorite part and what I get the most excited about. I'm always talking about the new and current movies and music, and I'm always listening to music. So, looking back, it was really fun because I know of all this stuff, even though I was a little baby at the time. I still, of course, have seen the big movies, and my parents would talk about it a lot. So, November 1st, actually, the Titanic got released at the Tokyo International Film Festival, and then later on in 1998 was awarded the Best Picture. This is a huge movie. It's still popular today. I know I've watched it in class in high school. Excuse me. And it's a huge production, and when you watch it, it's just amazing, even though it's a very long movie. It was actually one of the biggest budgeted movies of all time, which I didn't know. And for its time, its special effects were insane. You wouldn't really think about it now being such a groundbreaking movie, but it really was. I think that a lot of people got attached to the story because it is such a huge tragedy, and people kind of cling on to those stories. And the director, James Cameron, really kind of went down and dove deep into the movie with all the action and the love and the drama and everything happening in the movie. I think it really, it was a huge production and people love that. So I can see why it's such a huge, huge movie. And it was actually the highest grossing films of all time until James Cameron's next huge film, Avatar. So we all know and love both of these movies, and it's just interesting to look back, and we all love a good Celine Dion power song. So, yeah, and I guess we will never know if Jack could have fit on that door with Rose at the end. Another movie, November 7th, came out, was Bean, directed by Mel Smith. That's always a feel-good comedy movie that we all love to watch. And then November 28th, the final episode of Beavis and Butthead aired on MTV. This was kind of a pioneering series for cartoon and comedy, and all of in between. It was really controversial with all of its tones of sex and violence, and influenced a lot of those funny cartoon movies that we watch today, such as like South Park that followed right after, or King of the Hill, and even stuff current like Rick and Morty, which people my age love to watch, and I know that I can always turn that on and have a good laugh. So it's interesting that that kind of happened in the late 90s, and it kind of sparked something in our society, and you can see kind of going from those happy family sitcoms to these kind of shows that were airing on like MTV and stuff like that. It was kind of groundbreaking, and I think society kind of followed that. So yeah, it's interesting looking back on all of that. Some fun facts about that show, Beavis and Butthead. They actually couldn't keep up with the demand that everyone loved it, and they were going to end the show short. But it made it from 1993 to 1997, so that's the day it ended. And people loved it so much it returned in 2011 again. So I think it's always going to be a very important show to a lot of people, and people will always make jokes about it. I know my dad always has jokes from that show, and it's nostalgic again. So on to music. So the #1 hit single in November was "Candle in the Wind." Something about the way he looks at you, or the way you look at something about the way you look tonight by Elton John. That was his last big single on the Billboard 100 charts, and it stayed in the top position for 12 straight weeks, which is insane. Elton John's such a big name in the music industry, and the late 90s was such a great time for music, so it's a good song. November 3rd, Spice Girls released their #1 album, making them the biggest British band since the Beatles, which is huge. The Beatles was a big time for people like my parents' age. I knew growing up that I listened to them a lot, and I also listened to Spice Girls because that was another big band. So these things kind of come in waves and in different ways, but it's always fun to follow. November 4th, Come On Over by Shania Twain was released, and it was the biggest country music album in history. And then in November 25th, Will Smith released his big solo album, Big Willie Style, Getting Jiggy with It. So yeah, those are some of my favorite things to share with you from 1997. I know it didn't get very political, but these are some of my favorite things to talk about from that era and time. So hope you enjoyed. Thanks.